Welcome to the Full-Time FBA Show. In each episode, it's our goal to help you turn part-time hours into a full-time income selling almost anything on Amazon. And now, your hosts of the show, Stephen and Rebecca Smotherman.
Welcome to episode number 296 of the Full-Time FBA Show. Today, we're going to help you overcome some failures. In fact, we're going to dive into the top 7 Amazon wholesale sourcing fails and how you can get past them. And to help us walk through this episode is my wife, Rebecca. What's up, Rebecca?
I never know what to say when you say, "What's up, Rebecca?" I'm like, the sky. No, I'm glad that we're talking about this because a lot of times we focus on everything that we need to be doing right. And we also need to talk about the mistakes that we've made or that we've helped others through, because we're all going to make mistakes. We're all going to have fails. And it's good to know that others have failures too and how we can overcome it.
Yeah, failing is just part of the process. Failure doesn't mean you've failed. It just means that you made a mistake and you can learn from it and move on. And so we're going to get into the main wholesale sourcing fails in this episode of the Full-Time FBA Show.
If you're interested in sourcing wholesale items to sell on Amazon, then you're in the right place and at the right time. For the next 2 weeks, this podcast and our email newsletter is going to be focusing 100% on wholesale strategies that are working right now. So you want to be sure you don't miss out on any wholesale content by subscribing to the Full-Time FBA newsletter. We do wholesale focused content at least twice a year. And so even if you miss the current wholesale teachings that we're doing right now, we'll have even more coming up for you soon. So head over to fulltimefba.com/subscribe and sign up for the newsletter that will help you turn part-time hours into a full-time income selling on Amazon.
All right. So today we're going to be covering wholesale sourcing and specifically the top 7 ways that most Amazon sellers fail when trying to source wholesale. And to start us off, the number 1 item on the list, maybe not the top one, but the first one we're going to discuss when it comes to most people who are trying to source wholesale, is that they don't understand that wholesale sourcing is a completely different animal from retail arbitrage or online arbitrage. I mean, the fact that RA and OA are so similar to each other is probably the main reason that some Amazon sellers just assume that wholesale is also going to be similar, which is just the furthest from the truth. And so I want you to be able to be successful at sourcing wholesale. You need to understand that wholesale is a completely different animal. Like if retail arbitrage was a dog, online arbitrage was a cat, then wholesale sourcing is like a hippopotamus. In other words, not similar at all, just completely different. In fact, there's very little when it comes to wholesale sourcing that can be transferred over from retail or online arbitrage. So if you think you can just use your RA or OA skills to help you source wholesale, you are highly likely to be unsuccessful.
The next big mistake people make when trying to source wholesale is that they spend hours and hours and hours and hours of time trying to land a wholesale account with a big name brand, or not even trying, but like talking about it and wishing for it and lamenting the fact that they can't get it. So you know the brands, we've probably all heard of them. They're brands like Lego, Nike, Louis Vuitton, Samsung, just so many big name brands that you see everywhere and it'd be like, ooh, that'd be nice. They sell a lot of items. I wish that I could get in on that. But here is why it's a big waste of time trying to go after these brands to sell them. They're just simply not going to allow a small online seller, which if you're listening to this podcast, we're all small online sellers, no matter if we are in 7 digits. They're just not going to allow us to land a wholesale account. In fact, you might not even get a rejection email or a phone call. They're just going to ignore you. So trying to reach out to these brands is a big waste of time. Even if they might consider selling to a small online seller, they'd still either require you to literally have a brick and mortar storefront or a minimum opening order in the high 6-figure range. And even then, you're probably not going to land a big name wholesale account.
Now, here's where the sweet spot is when it comes to wholesale success. And we're going to get into it even more in our upcoming free workshop coming up soon. And that's this. The best brands to sell on Amazon as a third-party seller are the brands that you've probably never heard of at all. but they're still doing millions of dollars in sales. And in fact, the best brands that we have landed for our own personal Amazon seller account are brands that we've never heard of. But we landed the account and we've been selling these brands for many years. Again, we'll go into that more in detail in our upcoming workshop. You can sign up for that by going to fultonfba.com/wholesale workshop. And you'll be able to either sign up for the workshop right at that moment, or you can be put on a notification email list where we'll notify you the moment that signups begin for the next wholesale workshop.
The next big moment of failure that most Amazon sellers experience when trying to source items at wholesale prices is that they are not actually buying directly from a manufacturer, but instead they're buying from a distributor. You might even think you're buying directly from a brand, and the brand will give you the lowest prices possible, but instead you're buying from a distributor who is still marking up their prices. So let's break down what's happening with this mistake. When you buy wholesale direct from the brand, you're getting your inventory at the lowest price. But if you're buying from a distributor, you're buying from a middleman, and that's not going to be the lowest price because the middleman needs to earn a profit, so they take a percentage for themselves. There are many distributors who say they sell at wholesale prices, but they're really not. They are buying at wholesale prices, then they increase the price and sell it to us. And remember, the lowest price possible will be buying directly from the brand, from the manufacturer.
Yeah, and just a little caveat here, the only time that it's good to buy from a distributor is when these two instances collide. Number one, the brand name is too big for you to actually be able to land that wholesale account. And number two, when it's still profitable to sell the item on Amazon, even when you're sourcing from the distributor who has raised up the prices, which to be honest is a rare occurrence when both of those situations are true at the same time.
Okay, so let's say you found a brand you want to sell on Amazon. You've never heard of this brand before, but it's selling well on Amazon and you want to land this wholesale account. The next big mistake you can make is how you present yourself to this brand. Remember, sourcing wholesale is a completely different animal.
Yeah, it's a hippopotamus, remember?
Yes. How could we forget that you said that? So you don't want to present yourself to the brand as an amateur, but to increase your chances of successfully landing this wholesale account, you want to present yourself as a professional. This can be done in a few key ways. First, how do you think a brand feels when they get an email from an Amazon seller with an email address that's like stevenscoolstuff@gmail.com?
Now, there is no proof I've ever used that email address.
I know, but you'd be surprised how many people do that. They reach out to a wholesale brand with a generic or casual Gmail address. But then on the other hand, how would a brand representative feel when receiving an email from Steven@pinnacleenterprises.com? Now that sounds like a professional seller. So we recommend getting the domain name and email address for a professional sounding business, and that will help elevate your status in the eyes of a wholesale brand representative.
Right. Even if you create a one-page website for your domain name that states, maybe your business mission statement, then that will help the brand see you as a legitimate buyer and as a professional business. And you don't need to make a super complicated website either. Just, again, a simple one-page site can go a long way to help these brands take you seriously. And just to be clear, both Steven's Cool Stuff at Gmail and Steven@pinnacleenterprises.com are both not real email addresses at all. So don't send me emails there. They don't exist.
Another way you can present yourself to a brand as a professional is the manner in which you communicate. It might be obvious to some, but many brands don't respond well to sloppy communication. For example, typos, vague requests, overly casual language, they make you look unprepared and inexperienced, possibly make you look like, you've got some sort of phishing scheme going on. So if you want these brands to give you a wholesale account, you need to sound professional in your communications with the brand.
So are you saying I shouldn't tell the brand, what's up, brah?
Definitely not.
Okay. All right. That's good. So you'll also want to make sure that you have all of your business documents ready to present to the wholesale brand, like your resale certificate, your EIN, which is your employer identification number, and anything else that basically proves you are a real business and not just some guy selling on Amazon from their basement. Even if you are just a guy selling on Amazon from your basement, you just don't want to present yourself in that manner.
Now, the biggest way you can fail when trying to source wholesale items and land wholesale accounts is that you only ask for a wholesale price list. And you'd be surprised how many people reach out to us and say, landing wholesale accounts is too hard, but nobody was giving me a wholesale account. But when we dive deeper into the situation, we find out that they only reached out to the brand and requested their inventory price list. And that's it. That's basically treating wholesale sourcing just like retail or online arbitrage, like it's a transaction. But as we've told you, wholesale is a completely different animal.
Hippopotamus.
Yes. So, Stephen, if Amazon sellers aren't only supposed to ask for inventory price lists when you're reaching out to a brand, tell us what else they're supposed to do.
Well, with retail arbitrage and online arbitrage, as Amazon sellers, we simply source through all the possible inventory items, check if things are profitable, they're selling consistently, and then just buy the winners to sell on Amazon. But with wholesale, you actually have to earn that inventory price list. It's more of a relationship, and that's done by providing the brand with value. With retail arbitrage and online arbitrage, the stores only care about you paying for the items you take home and sell on Amazon. But with wholesale, it's more like entering into a mutually beneficial relationship. You want it to be a win-win situation. You want to land the wholesale account, and the brand wants to make sure that you prove that you're a team player, that you're on the brand's team.
Brands hear from many Amazon sellers, and unfortunately, a lot of Amazon sellers that try to land wholesale accounts are just not very good partners at all. They don't hold a MAP. Pricing is a huge one. MAP stands for minimum advertised price, and it's an agreement that sellers make with the brand to not price the brand's item under an agreed upon minimum price. And most Amazon sellers just ignore that. They don't hold to that agreement at all, even though they've made an agreement. And this really frustrates the brand and has now given Amazon sellers a bad reputation in the eyes of a lot of the brands out there.
But if you can offer and show value to the brand and prove that you are more of a team player, then the brands are going to be more likely to trust you as a seller of their merchandise and help you land a wholesale account. So how do you provide value to the brand so they actually give you a wholesale account? Well, that's going to be the main topic we're going to be discussing in our upcoming wholesale workshop. It's going to be a free workshop where you're going to learn how to bring massive value to a brand, where the brand will approve you as an Amazon seller for the brand and might even give you an exclusive where you are the only Amazon seller who can sell that brand on Amazon. Yes, it's possible. We're going to walk through how you can make that happen in our upcoming workshop. And so to sign up for that workshop, go to fulltimefba.com/wholesale workshop. And you'll either be able to directly sign up for the workshop, or you'll be able to join a wait list to be notified when the next wholesale workshop is going to be held. In fact, this free workshop, it's actually better than some of the previous paid wholesale training I've taken in the past. So you don't want to miss it out. Again, that link, fulltimefba.com/wholesale workshop.
Selling wholesale on Amazon really is one of the best ways to grow a successful Amazon business from home, but actually landing the wholesale accounts is hard. But in our upcoming workshop, we'll outline the exact success path to landing multiple wholesale accounts to sell on Amazon.
Yeah, I mean, my favorite part about selling wholesale items is that only 2 to 4 good wholesale accounts can provide you with enough inventory to potentially make a full-time income on Amazon. So learning the skills to land these wholesale accounts is something that you need to prioritize. So if you want to succeed in the long term, our wholesale workshop is coming up soon, and we look forward to seeing you there.
Hippopotamus.
What'd you call me?
Thank you so much for joining us for this episode of the Full-Time FBA Show. As a reminder, you can find the show notes and the links that were mentioned in this episode at fulltimefba.com/296 because we're on episode number 296.
And next week on the Full-Time FBA Show, we're going to continue the conversation talking about wholesale sourcing on Amazon, and we'd love to have you join us. So we'll see you next week on the Full-Time FBA Show.
That's all for this episode of the Full-Time FBA Show. So head over to fulltimefba.com/podcast, where you'll find the show notes and links from this episode. While you're there, subscribe to our newsletter where you'll get several free downloads of our popular and helpful Amazon FBA resources. Now, take action on what you've learned today so you can find success at turning part-time hours into a full-time income with Amazon FBA.